the first slide, the enhanced security. Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. We are super excited to walk you through our enhanced security on the Workspace for Education Plus side. We have a couple cool things planned for you guys, so we hope you really enjoy this. Perfect. What we're going to do today is we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction, because I'm assuming not everybody knows everyone here. We're going to then move into the Internet 2 Net Plus program overview, which is given by Tara. And then we have Ken, who's going to walk us through the enhanced features of the security and on the Plus version with a little bit of a demo and walking through a couple of the slides. And then we have Rob from Wake Forest, who's going to talk about his experience with the Security Center and how they're using it and how they're benefiting at his institution. And then we have a Q&A session, so we do encourage live questions, but we also have the Q&A functionality here in our Meet, in our session, so feel free to ping any questions. In the meantime, we're happy to answer them. If for some reason we don't get to them because we're taking maybe live questions, we will send them out later. There will also be, the recording will also be available at a later stage. So I really hope you guys enjoy today's session. So let's start with a quick introduction for everyone on this call who does not know me. My name is Ann Boltman. I'm the Google Workspace for Education specialist on the West Coast. I work with Leighton Spencer, who covers the East Coast, and it's the two of us working on the Workspace Plus team. And with me today, we have Ken Matthews, who is our Google Workspace solution engineer and gracefully offered to walk us through the demo, so that's going to be super interesting. And then we have Rob Smith from Wake Forest. Rob, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. I'm Rob Smith. I'm the Director of IT Infrastructure at Wake Forest, and my group, along with a couple of others, shares in the overall management of the Google Workspace suite.
Perfect, thank you. And then we have Tara from the Internet 2. Tara, you want to take it?
Hi, Tara Jennis. I'm the Program Development Manager for our Net Plus program at Internet 2, and I work closely with Dana Voss, who is the Program Manager for the Net Plus Google Workspace for Education program. She's on holiday right now, and we'll be back for our next session where you'll learn even more in depth about the specifics of the Net Plus program that she worked on over the past year plus. Next slide, please. So just a few highlights about this program. Many of you have joined the session last week where I spoke a little bit about the program overview. And like I said, Dana will be covering it in depth in the next webinar. But just to give you a few just introductory remarks about it and how important it is for our community and higher education research that we have such a program with Google. Next slide. These Net Plus programs go through a lot in terms of the service evaluation. So when a service like the Google Workspace for Education becomes a Net Plus service, that means that it's gone through quite an extensive evaluation, both on the functional side as well as the technical, security, business, and then in the deployment phase that we're in now, it sets it up so that our users in the higher ed and research space have a contract, terms, support, integration, security that we're going to talk about today that meets the needs of our community. Next slide. So really the purpose of all of this, that we go through this service evaluation and create these programs, is to help both the community as well as the vendor come together in the interest of servicing our common customers, both on the higher education as well as the service provider side. It reduces time, it reduces cost, and reduces risk. And we're going to be talking a lot about that risk in terms of security features today. Next slide. And In terms of the service evaluation, we like to acknowledge that this is done completely by the Internet 2 community of higher education institutions. And in particular, these universities were very involved in the process, and were joined by others that worked on the final negotiation. But we're very happy that Rob is here today from Wake Forest, and thank he and his colleagues for all the work they did to make this program possible. Next slide. So in terms of where we are in the Net Plus program with Google Workspace, it went through, like I said, the service evaluation began in May of 2020. We were close to launching the program at the end of the year in December, but then there were some changes made, and so the community came back together to work on the agreement that has become the new Net Plus program we're going to be talking a little bit more about today. So I want to thank everybody who's brought us to this point, and look forward to learning more about the security tools. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. Great overview. We are going to jump now into the Security Center and the enhanced tools around security. Ken is taking over from here. We're going to start a little bit with presentation slides and then actually going into a live demo. So Ken, I'm going to go to the next one.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I wanted to give you a quick overview, but we're going to spend the majority of the time focusing in on the admin console so you can actually see the tools and what's available to you if you were to purchase with Plus. The highlights here: Security Center Dashboard Investigation Tool and the Security Health page. That comprises all of the Security Center itself. And I've also threw in the Security Sandbox. Next slide. That's Security Sandbox is essentially, it's an enhanced scanning functionality on top of the existing compliance, as well as pre-delivery scans that Gmail does. This is specifically for attachments within emails that are delivered to your users in your organization. So essentially, this scanning functionality will scan it in a virtual sandbox and run a report for you. And if that turns out to be malicious, it will throw it into spam. You also have the ability to set up rules to throw that into quarantine as an administrator. But this gives you some information around zero-day threats. Organizations or institutions that are using Mac and Windows environments as well, this could come in handy as well. Next slide. Security Health. I like to start out with Security Health. This is your doctor's checklist or of all of your domain security settings and privacy settings within your domain. This gives you a good overview of all of your settings as they relate to industry best practices. Next slide. Security Dashboard, Mission Control. Here's all your security metrics, and it gives you a little bit more visibility into what's going on in terms of file exposure, Gmail authentication, OAuth grants that your users are working with within your organization. So this gives you a lot of good detailed information that you can then click into reports, as well as jump directly into the next slide, which would be the investigation tool. The investigation tool is where you can begin to identify, triage, and take action on these events. So it takes all of the reporting functionality that you see within fundamentals under the highlights reports, the aggregate information on your reports, as well as the auditing information, and it allows you to take action directly on this. You have actions that you can take for your users, for your Gmail, for your Drive. We'll go through that a little bit more in depth in my presentation here, in my demonstration. So I'm going to take over now, and we'll share the admin console so that you can begin to see these features in real time. So give me 1 second as I navigate all my windows around. Okay. Everybody can see my screen? Thumbs up?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So I'm just going to refresh real quick to make sure that my session is still live. But I've started out with the Security Sandbox. The Security Sandbox is apps, Google Workspace, settings for Gmail under spam, phishing, and malware. There are essentially two options that you have available to you. You can turn it on for your entire domain for all of your inbound emails, as well as internal receiving emails, without having to get a little bit more granular. Or you can go in and you can actually create security sandbox rules, which would be similar to functionality to compliance rules. In order for you to have this granularity in terms of the security sandbox rules, you will need to make sure that this is turned off. This particular setting is for the entire domain. It's a simple click of the checkbox here to be enabled or disabled, and then clicking save. For the terms of this demonstration, I'm going to dig into the security sandbox rules. It is important to note that there is some slight delay in message delivery, nothing more than 3 minutes for large attachments. Most of it's under that. As you imagine, we're adding more scanning functionality to anything that's coming in, so that's something to note here. You have a number of options when you click into configure to create these specific rules. You can set them by OUs if you need to. There are 4 options right off the bat: the ability to write a short description for what this particular rule is applying to, which messages to affect, inbound or internal receiving, and then the meat of the entire rule would be within the expressions that you want to add. You can add multiple expressions. In doing so, you can choose to make sure you have 2 options here. Any of the following expressions need to match, so any one of those expressions that you set up, or all of them need to match. Specific expressions, that you have available to you. Simple content match, it works similar to Google search. So if you put in, for instance, content match for gift cards, you will expose every single message that comes in with content for gift and for cards. You have the ability to get more exact with the advanced content match. This is going to be based on the location within the message itself. Here are all the options that you have available to you. You can check the full message, you can check the raw message, specific senders and receivers, and the actual content match type. So starts with, end with, text contains, does not, equals, regex is also available in here. That is all available with the advanced content match. Digging a little bit deeper, we have metadata match. So this is essentially matches as it relates to attributes, and then that particular match type related to that attribute. So some of the attributes that we have available here, we're looking at message authentication, source IP, is it securely transported to your environment or not, the size of the message, SMIME, if it is enabled in your environment, as well as Gmail confidential mode. All of these, whether they're on or off, would be options under the match type that you could then select. And then finally, to round this all out, we look at predefined content match. So this is similar to DLP. You have a number of options that are predefined templates based on location. So United States, United Kingdom. We have global awareness in terms of all the various predefined content matches that we need to specify here. Once you've set all that up, you can set content thresholds as well within this particular area. And then once that's set up, it's a simple third option of running the security scan for those particular messages based on OU or that you choose. As well, you have a number of other hidden options here. You can unhide them, and you see that you can apply specific address lists, either to bypass or to apply the setting to those particular address lists. You can affect your users or any catch-all addresses that are within your environment, and you can affect specific envelope senders or receivers. Options in here include single address, a pattern match based on specific email pattern match that is coming into your environment, as well as group membership. That is essentially Security Sandbox at a high level. All this information will actually surface in the dashboards, which I'll show you later on. For now, I'm going to jump back outside of apps, and we're going to jump into the Security Center, and we're going to start with what I mentioned, the Doctor's Health Check, or the Security Health page. You're going to see 3 columns here once it loads. You're going to see the actual setting itself, the application that it applies to. These are all clickable links. So you can click on any of these links, and it'll take you directly to that setting within your admin console. The status is the middle column. This is essentially how that particular setting is enabled or disabled across your entire environment. You can also click into this particular column as well and get a little bit more visibility into which particular sub-OUs this particular setting is enabled or disabled for. You can also export this list if you wanted to do even more investigation on that particular item. If you had a lot of OUs, for instance, you could do that. And then finally, you have the green check marks or the recommendation icons. These essentially are your security best practices. if you see it as a green check mark, that means you're in compliance with what we recommend. The recommendation icon will give you more recommendations that you can click on. It'll give you a quick blurb, why we're recommending that, and then you can, of course, click into the Help Center article by clicking Learn More. The options here, we understand that higher education is a very complex environment, so the goal is not to get all green check marks. This is just for you to kind of do a gut check against your settings against what we're recommending. Specifically, to call something out, higher education has a lot of whitelisted IPs or allow listed IPs. Obviously, we're recommending not to have that, but that isn't a viable option within a higher education environment, so that's more than likely not going to get checked. Some of the other options here, you have a bunch on Gmail, a bunch around device management, and a bunch around two-step verification as well. These are all important items for you to look at and kind of dig into as an administrator so you can get a sense of what's going on in your environment. With that, I will jump next into the security dashboards, or mission control, as we like to say. I believe the story goes that Verizon had actually, with the admin SDK reports API, had built their own dashboards. We saw this and we liked it, and we decided to implement this within our environment for all of our customers. These essentially are going to be dashboard reports that you can click into to get even more information as it relates to those reports in terms of the metrics of your domain. We have a number of them around Gmail, and a number of them, one or two around Drive, OAuth. Specifically, I'm going to dig really quickly into this Drive external file sharing report so you can kind of see what is available to you. You have the option to do filtering up at the top here, either by domain or the days to look back. We can go back as far as 180 days. For most items, Gmail will be limited at 30 days, as we all know. That's the retention. And something that I wanted to call out specifically, because we had a recent announcement around resource keys. Anyone with a link, that is clicked in here. So you can quickly see, if you wanted to uncheck all of this information here, you could quickly see some items, click on that actual graph, and it'll give you some information as it relates to that down here in terms of views, the domains, and any DLP rules as it relates to that. So you can quickly get some information here, jump into the investigation tool. I'll revisit this in the investigation tool, but you can see that, as an administrator, as you have questions about any announcements that we have, these dashboards can give you some good visibility into what's going on within your domain, so you can get a sense of how that will affect your users. Moving back out, I'm going to push this back out to 30 days so we can see pretty graphs with the Gmail information that we have. But we're looking at Gmail authentication, so how your messages are being authenticated as they come into your domain. Any custom settings. So when we talk about the custom settings, we have the default Gmail spam settings. But as you as administrators may have an inbound gateway or IP allow lists or any block lists that you have, this agreement or disagreement of those settings based on our defaults would be reflected in this graph here. Encryption, overall message delivery, spam. This is all spam, so how your spam is being routed in your domain versus clean. Then we can dig into specifics around phishing and malware. The malware is going to be specific to the security sandbox. So this is where that information is going to be surfaced for you as an administrator when you set that up. User reports, how your users are marking their spam. Suspicious attachments and spoofing, all that to round out the Gmail that's available for you in terms of metrics that you have available for you. And then we can roll into some device management. If you as an administrator are managing iOS or Android devices under advanced device management, this would be reflected in these three graphs here: compromised devices, as well as suspicious device activities and any failed password attempts over 6 or more. And then, the really popular within higher education, we're looking at OAuth grants for new apps. So I'm going to go back up here so you can kind of see what it looks like with actual data. I'm going to push this back out to 180 days. And you can see that, you can quickly see a report in terms of within the last time window, the amount of grants that have taken place and the applications that it relates to. You can also see that change of activity as it relates from time window to time window. You can also go specifically into the scopes and the users for those particular OAuth grants. So you can dig directly into here, see a number of scopes, the apps that those particular scopes apply to, as well as the users that are using those scopes and apps. All of that information is available in the dashboard. Once we're done with the OAuth, we can dig into user login attempts, failed attempts, how your users are using two-step verification, any suspicious login attempts. I was recently outside of the United States, working remotely. As you can see, I have a number of the items that have been flagged within my domain. So that would essentially show up for you as administrators, possibly a precursor to Google suspending an account for whatever reason. This might give you some insight there. And then, of course, to round it out, we have Dlp incidents in terms of the rules that are being violated based on severity and any of your top incidents that are being particularly triggered in this particular setting. All of that information is available in the dashboards. And I'll just mention quickly, you also have the ability to, within the investigation tool, create widgets based off of investigations. You can create these dashboards themselves, and you can drag them in here and move all these around and customize as you see fit. And now I'll jump into the investigation tool, because this is what we feel is the hero feature of this. This is where you begin to take action. Actually, before I do that, let me go back into the dashboards, because I want to show you with a particular phishing report. I want to show you how you can just jump directly into the investigation tool. Let's push this back out to 30 days up here at the top with the filters. And we see that I have probably not as many as you may see in your environment, but I have a few items here that are being reflected in terms of phishing. Again, I can click on this graph. It's going to give me information as it relates to that. I have a number of items up here that I can look at in terms of the metadata of those particular items. As you can see, IP address, link domains, SPF DKIM domains, information on the hash, message size, location, display name. And I, as an administrator, can either in bulk, based on this search, open up the investigation tool up top here, or on an individual basis per email, open up the investigation tool directly here. That's going to pre-populate an investigation with all of the data sources and conditions that you need to be able to run this search, and then it's going to give you all the information that you need down here in terms of the search. But before we get into actually working with the actual items themselves, I do want to call out all of the items that are available to you within the data sources. So you see that we have chat log events, device log events, calendar log events, drive log events, a big one. We have Gmail log events, which is what we're looking at now, and as well as Gmail messages. So if you wanted to search the content of messages across your entire domain, you'd be able to use this data source to be able to dig into that. Meet log events, an action that I will call out that we recently released is the ability to, if you have users within your organization using Meet, the ability to end a meeting for all directly from the admin console right here. So if there's any Zoom bombing event, for instance, that happens, and you as an administrator need to take that over, you can quickly click based off of your investigation, click this, and it will end that meeting, as well as set quick access to be limited so that anybody in the calendar invite can quickly jump into that without any disruption. Rule log events, users and user log events to round that out. You also have a number of conditions based on each one of these data sources that you see here. For instance, for Gmail log events, here are the number of conditions that you have available that you can use to be able to begin your searches. Sender domain, spam classification, reasons, any target information hash in terms of malware on the attachments itself, the traffic source, the to, the from, any link domain information. As well as there's a number of items in events. So drive log events and Gmail log events, user log events, all of these have a number of event items. Some of this will relate to system events that have taken place in the logs. A lot of this is going to relate to actions that your users have taken. So if my user has opened up a phishing spam email, and clicked on the link, I as an administrator can see that action, and that'll give me some information in terms of, do I need to reset this user's password? Also, I can see a number of items in terms of moving in and out of trash, opening, receiving. So if I was looking for a specific item in terms of a subject, and I wanted to see how that was received across my entire domain, to see the extent of a phishing or spam event, I could do that. If any of my users have classified it, all this information is available here. As well, there are a number of actions that you can take place. The first one, as you can see, these are blue. They are links. So I can click on that, and that is going to open up immediately the message header, as well as the routing information that I can take. I can quickly, as administrator, see if I've passed authentication with SPF, DKIM, or DMARC. I can see the routing information that that has taken and where that is coming from, as well as copy the raw header to be able to supply to support if I needed to do that. And another thing you can do, you can also click on the message, give a justification as to why you, as an administrator, are looking into this. This will be logged within the admin audit log. So if there's any delegated administrators within your environment that have this privilege, you as a super administrator will be able to see the actions that they take and iterate on that. You can see the message here. I can actually read the message as well as the thread. I can hover over the link in there to see the actual URL to see if it's fishy or not. I'm also able to surface that information within the metadata of the search result itself down here. But this is a highly useful tool to be able to use as administrator to gain visibility in terms of security around email. You also can delete, restore, mark this message directly as spam. It's also worth noting that you can do that directly by clicking on here, and you're going to unlock this action menu. You can see a number of items here that you can take, sending it to quarantine, marking it as spam so that our algorithm knows that any messages coming from this IP or this particular address going forward are spam, etc. All of that information is available to you directly from the admin console. As well, you have the ability to pivot as an administrator. So if I was concerned for whatever reason around, let's go back out into the dashboard itself. I'm going to click on this particular item here, open up another investigation. But if I was concerned for whatever reason about this particular user, let's say, either being enrolled or not enrolled in two-factor authentication, maybe I'm concerned that that user has been compromised and I see an uptick in emails going out, spammy emails that are going out to my inbound in my users. I can pivot based off of this particular item here. I particularly, in this case, want to use the condition of users, and I'm looking at the email where the condition of email, where the email is ken@cayman2.com. This, I can do a search here and add further conditions that are based on users. So I want to look to see if enrolled in two-factor authentication is false, do a quick search here, and I can see this is false. So, I would have to have a conversation with this particular user, or if I want to take immediate action, let's just force a password change directly to mitigate any issue in terms of this being a compromised scenario. And also suspend or restore this user. As well, I can take more action if I knew a specific, between a specific set of dates when this particular compromise event took place. I could click on this particular user, pivot to any information around drive log events where they have taken action on. Not necessarily ownership of the events, but any actions that they've taken on anything within the domain. So anything that they have access to or anything that they own that they were changing. I'm able to quickly pivot there and add a number of conditions here. I'm going to just essentially open up the grouping option here. So I'm going to group by events so that you can see the aggregate numbers of all the events that have taken place for this particular user. So as you can see, here's a number of events that I have that is related to this user. I don't have a specified time window, so it's going back 180 days, but if I did, it would show those events based on the time window. And if I was concerned about any any one of these, like visibility change, anything that they've changed in terms of externally sharing items, I could then pivot that into another condition and another search and do even more investigation. If I was concerned about any download information that was going on and I wanted to group those particular events by document type, I could do that, and I can get some even more information, aggregate information there, and then add that to the search. For instance, if I was concerned about maybe any items that were being downloaded in terms of Meet recordings, I could do a quick search on that. And once I had my items here, I could click on any number one of these and take action on the actual event, on the actual item itself. It is important to note that you see a lot of the same titles here and a lot of the same document IDs. This is because it's logging all the events as it relates to those. You could obviously pare those events down and get more specific if you wanted to, But in the action menu, when we open this up, I can add users to this. I can audit file permissions. So if this was open to the entire world, I can pull that back as an administrator. I can change the ownership of this, disable download, print, and copy, and remove users all in bulk directly from the admin console in a fast clip without having to engage with my users or go through the normal processes to be able to do this. I will also note that there are a number of options over here on the right-hand side. So you can open up the ability to save investigations that you go through. You have the ability to, if the proper functions are met within your search parameters, you can, like I mentioned before, you can create a custom chart, which will go into that dashboards. You can create activity rules. The benefit of this is you can automate the investigation, and it will email you every time a particular occurrence happens. It will send you an email with a link directly to the investigation tool. If you're logged into the browser with the admin account, you can quickly jump into the investigation from that email. And you're also able to share these particular items out, copy further investigations. I've saved a number of investigations just so you can see where they're saved. This is the kind of the repository of all saved investigations. For instance, resource keys investigations. If administrators were curious during the announcement, well, how is this going to affect my users? Who is going to be affected? We can quickly look at a resource key. It's a complex resource key search that is essentially looking at everybody with visibility with people with a link or audience with a link. It's meeting those two conditions plus any view events that are related to it, plus not looking at any of these items itself because resource keys don't specifically highlight those items. And then it's grouping those results by owners. My particular environment was formed after the November 2017 deadline, so I don't have anything in here, but you'd be able to search, quickly see as an administrator who do I need to actually have a discussion with directly from the admin console. Another particular use case that might come in handy, files owned by suspended users. So you could do a search on users. The suspended ID is true. You get a number of options here. You can pivot off that search. It will add all of the owners into unique values. So you can group all those owners in here and the unique values. And then you want to look at events over the last 180 days that these items that they're owners of were viewed. And you can quickly see a number of items in terms of what they own and how popular they are in terms of access of those items. And of course, once you've surfaced those items, you could, I don't think there's going to be anything here, but you could perform action on this. So you could, in a clip, remove access, remove all users, which I know that's been a popular thing with higher education admins, having that one button access to be able to remove access to files that a suspended user owns. Granted, you may want to have some type of permission mapping to know if you have to go back and do that, but you can also export this information out to a CSV file to be able to see that information so that you have that. But there is that option if you wanted to use it to be able to remove that access very quickly. And with that, that pretty much sums up the entirety of what I wanted to show today. I'm happy to, or excited to hear what Robert has to say from Wake Forest in terms of what he's been using this tool for. So I will stop presenting and give it back over to Anne, and thank you very much for your time today.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. That was very thorough. I'm sure there are probably some questions around this. I know we're going to have Rob now talk about Wake Forest and their experience around the Security Center and their use cases and the benefits. If there are any questions in the meantime, we have a Q&A section in this Meet. So there are the little 3 geometrical figures at the lower right corner. If you click on that one, it opens a Q&A. So we're happy to address those questions as well, just in case there's anything burning that you don't want to forget. But with that, I'm going to give it over to Rob to walk us through some of his experience.
Thanks, Anne and Ken. I thought I'd start off just letting you know where we are. So Wake Forest is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. We're a private residential university, just under 5,500 undergrads. We also have graduate programs in law, divinity, business, and humanities. We have the distinction, I reckon, of being the smallest school in the ACC. We're also an early adopter of Gmail, So we, I think nearly 10 years ago, if not more, we transitioned from on-premise Microsoft Exchange to Gmail for our students, and the faculty and staff followed pretty quickly afterwards. As the platform has evolved and taken hold here, a majority of our users go to Google for everything, really. Over the past 5 years, we've been executing on a big cloud-first strategy, like a lot of our peers and colleagues in higher ed. And over the summer, reached sort of our main goal of displacing over 80% of our locally hosted applications to software as a service, infrastructure as a service, or cloud hosted. We've reduced down our data center footprint. We've simplified the environment. We've basically made everything better. So Google's at the center of all of this. And a big portion of that centrality, I guess, is for us, identity management and two-factor authentication. I know that's not today's topic, but it's probably the thing that we consume the most of that's behind the scenes. Basically, any application that we support, we try to Googleize it through SAML. We've got pilots underway with mobile device management, data loss prevention, and workstation logon. And we find that we even make decisions about what else we're going to buy based on what is built into Google, especially lately what's built into Google's Security Center. For instance, we have basically 2 tools for DLP. One is the one built in with Google, and another that we've licensed for the other aspects of data loss prevention that we're concerned about, especially since usually the licensing for those other products is by the thing that you want to track. So if you want to look at DLP for Dropbox and Microsoft 365 and other things, you're looking at one price versus if you wanted to do it for 5 things. We're also in the middle of transitioning to a new SIM, and a chief objective of that is to ensure that we can export relevant Google data into a single repository of security event information. So the reason that I'm talking today is that in addition to our use of sort of the productivity side, we were a very early adopter of the paid version, even before Google changed the name to Workplace. So, I forget the name. I think it had the word enterprise in it. And we were especially interested at the time in enhanced logging, especially SMTP type logging, more control over our users, and as Ken has shown us, the security insights. So I thought I'd mention kind of the main thing, and for us, what kind of made it happen, what got the PO signed, if you will, was an audit finding. So in addition to the other things that I've talked about so far, we've adopted Workday, HR and finance. We've got a student initiative about to launch as well. And among the audit findings was that in spite of our success with user authentication, with two-factor, the auditors felt like for critical roles within that system, we needed more control. And it was the ability to manage that additional control through Google that helped us with the justification for the enhanced licensing. From a configuration standpoint, what this has meant for us is that when someone logs on, we look at the IP address of origin. We look at the authentication renewal interval compared with, say, a regular person. And eventually, when the product features catch up with each other, we'll turn on something Workday calls step-up authentication, so that if you're about to execute a critical task, it will ask you to revalidate your identity and your second factor. Behind that configuration, we often visit the logging data. So as Ken demonstrated, we're looking for suspicious logons and other activity that could suggest account breach or account compromise and so on. And especially with second factor through Google, we've seen account compromises drop really, really, really dramatically. We've got 100% compliance in the second factor area, so there's actually not even a choice among our user base about whether they can log on some other way. With that, I'll stop talking. I think I was, roughly the time I was given, but we've been really, we rely heavily on Google, and it's definitely at the center of a lot of the work that we do.
Perfect. Thank you, Rob. I do have a follow-up question because Ken walked us beautifully through the investigation tool. How have you seen security teams' overall time to address the incidents improve with the security enhancement of the investigation tool?
Great question. So what our security office, which has some dedicated people and then some shared people across a lot of different disciplines in our department. So there's actually a chief information security officer, and he's got people on his team, and we've delegated use of the tool set that Ken demonstrated to some of the team members that work strictly in security. He's in this tool every day, almost all day, looking at suspicious activity, suspicious emails. When there is a declared incident, he has used the ability to, with appropriate sort of controls, stop the flow of that email, remove it from inboxes, and so forth. So having that dashboard and the ability to delegate the use of that dashboard to specific team members has been really helpful to us.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. That's super helpful. With that, we're opening it up to live questions. I quickly checked the chat. There are no chat questions. Anyone wants to unmute, ask any questions? It's a great time now to talk about the security tools.
Hi, this is Robin from the University of Northern Iowa. I have a question regarding the investigation tool. If you would have used something that's Google native, like let's say a Google Doc, can you actually open the Google Doc and see it, or does it have you like download it and it's a Word document?
You could give yourself permission within that and then access the document that way, but you'd have, it's two steps, right? You'd have to essentially add yourself as a user to the document or change ownership if you wanted to, and then you could access that.
Okay, thank you.
This is Jake Harwood from University of California, Berkeley. And I think this is sort of directed towards Rob or Ken. But I'm interested in how you're feeding your SIM, and are you getting the right data? Is it classified and categorized and normalized appropriately? That's an area that we want to beef up on, and we're curious to see what your success with that has been.
So I'll give you a quick answer because I don't have what I can tell you in our case, we're in the process of selecting a new SIM, and that has been a key requirement of our decision factors. So we're attempting to rate the products that we evaluated based on their ability to ingest that data elegantly, I'll say, in a way that we can consume it in all the various reporting and proactive stuff. It's probably not a lot of help, but I can tell you it's also a priority for us.
Thank you.
And so following up on that one is a kind of a question probably more for Ken. Are there direct tools that you can use to link the logs that are stored in the Google platform to Splunk, so we can actually have a direct integration between our pane of glass for everything else and everything that's in Google?
Yeah, the direct integration within the workspace environment to our cloud environment is going to be BigQuery. There are options that our GCP CEs can walk through that will allow you to integrate directly with GCP, any tools within GCP with Splunk if you needed to. So the options are available to you.
Excuse me, will that require an active export? Basically going in and manually exporting to BigQuery and then pulling down to Splunk, or can this all be set up to be done automatically?
That is a good question. I believe I don't have the specifics, as that's not fully my my realm of expertise. I don't have the specifics in terms of the integration between BigQuery to Splunk. I want to say that it's a little bit of a lift. It's not going to be a complete integration that you see. That said, I do know that it does exist. The actual integration between Workspace into BigQuery is literally a two-step process. You create the project and you just link the project within Workspace, and within 72 hours that information is going to be available to you. 72 hours? Yeah. Okay, so it wouldn't be much use for a daily report. Well, what I'm saying is 72 hours for that to initially show up. There's going to be a little bit of a lag in terms of how that runs. The lag is going to be less than, say, the reporting API if you were to pull those manually. Okay. Along the lines of morning reports, can we design our own dashboards? You can. It directly integrates with, well, actually, this is something that we're looking into. You know, we've recently acquired Looker, so we're looking into integration with Looker. But we, you know, right out of the box, it integrates with Data Studio. I actually took me 5 minutes the other day to create, based off of storage monitoring for both Gmail and for Drive, create a quick dashboard that allows me to look at the storage of every single individual user. So yeah, it's really simple to do. It integrates directly. You can export any query that you have within BigQuery directly into that. You also have the ability to use connected sheets, which will query the information directly from sheets. And you can use pivot tables within sheets to be able to visualize that data. Okay. I also wanted to mention, I may not have heard the question correctly, but someone was asking about being able to look directly at email messages. Yes. That are picked up in the investigative tool. Mm-hmm. In fact, you don't need to, if you have admin privileges, you don't need to get ownership of them. You can bring them up and click them directly out of a search, select message. It will ask you to enter a business reason for looking. But once you do that, you can go in and look. Correct. And pull out the message. Even without doing that, you can pull out the entire set of headers and copy them out, which is often extremely useful in investigations.
That's for email. My question was about Google Docs.
Oh, Docs. Okay, yep. I'm sorry.
Yep. No worries.
Yeah, with Docs, it's going to be a two-step process. You'd have to add yourself, but with Gmail, it's one click and you're in.
Any chance of it being a one-click operation with Docs at some point in the future?
I can put that on the feature list of items for product to I'm sure they've heard that, but I can definitely add that as another option for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do have another question to follow up on that. With the investigation tool and the docs that you're searching through, does it search through everything, or does it only search through things that have changed in the audit log?
That is a great question. And yes, so action has to be taken on those particular documents within the last 180 days. Okay. So if there's no action that has been taken on that, you would not surface any event related to it.
Okay, so like I had an end user who couldn't find a document, and I couldn't find it because there was no audit logs. I couldn't use the investigation tool to help me then.
No, but you could integrate, which is another plush feature, you could integrate that information with Bigquery, and
Okay.
that would push out those logs even further, and you
Sure.
can run that
Okay.
for years on end.
Okay, thanks.
Great questions.
Sorry, King, I have a last question. And if you save the data, how long you can save this data? It depends on the political country or depends on politics of institution to save data.
When you're talking about the integration with Bigquery?
For example, you can save data of security for 3 or 4 years of the students, teachers, etc. How many years you can save the data if you export this data to Bigquery, for example?
Oh, you have the option to set it to indefinite if you want to. In terms of the log data, you could set, there's actually an option within the actual data set within the project itself. You can set the expiration on that. It's actually one of the, when you're setting up the data set, it's something that you should always check because it defaults to 60 days. You want to go in there and set that to a time reference that you want, or you can specify longer or unlimited and just have it add. I will note that there is a slight cost with the Bigquery, right? There's a query cost as well as a storage cost. It's nominal. A lot of our institutions that have been using this, nothing more than $100 a month to run hundreds and hundreds of items and log items within their query. So,
Okay, thank you.
another benefit I just want to mention as well. You can also see when you do a query how much data is going to be used, so you can use that to gauge based off of the free limit that you're given every year or every month.
Exactly. Thank you.
Quick question. This is this is Piruz from George Washington University about customizing the dashboard you spoke of earlier. Can that I assume that's specific to the user, right? And can it be shared with others? The customized dashboard.
It is both. It can be shared. Those customizations can be shared. Yeah, that option works for the user, or you can save investigations and share those, and they can create dashboards off that.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I see Robin asked, for the free credits, is it per person that can run those queries, or domain-wide? Domain-wide. It's based on the project. So, that project is going to be tied to your domain, your organization, as they see it in GCP. You're welcome.
Okay, we got a couple more minutes. If there are 1 or 2 more questions, we're happy to take them. Perfect. Thank you, Tara. If that's it for today, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Ken, Rob, and Tara, to walking us through the demos, through the experiences, and the program. This was super, super helpful. If there are any questions from the audience at a later point, please feel free to reach out. The recording will be sent, I believe, in the next week. We'll be live on the YouTube channel. And as Tara mentioned, our next session is on Tuesday, the 28th. And it's about the Internet 2 Workspace for Education program. So we're happy to have you again. And there are no further questions. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.